Hey, what's going on, everybody? Welcome back to the TJR Auto channel. My name is Tyler. For those who don't know, this is my lovely, lovely Bonnie. And in today's video, we're going to be doing a smorgasbord of things. A couple parts for the Jeep came. This thing needs an oil change and just a wellness check before winter. And the GTO has sprung 3 leaks. Not one, not two, but 3 separate leaks. One's coolant, one's power steering, and the other one's oil. So it's just a lovely day to be me. But obviously, Bonnie's in the garage. So first things first, let's get this baby up in the air. Got to do an oil change. It's been a little while since I've done one, so the oil's looking a little dark, and it could use a top off, so might as well just put new oil in it, new filter, whatever. Feels like the clutch cable loosened up on me, so we're also going to check that while we're under there. It's a pretty simplistic cable-driven setup. All Mustangs, basically, I think from 79 to 04, used the same exact cable setup, so it's pretty straightforward. But let's get this baby up in the air. Let's get Bonnie knocked out, get her done, so we can start working on the other lovely vehicles that I love so much. And another thing I just noticed too, my shirt's inside out. Happy Saturday. Well, oil change is done. That was pretty straightforward. Now we have one 10mm bolt, which will take off this clutch cable cover, and then we'll see if this loosened up at all. And if not, I do have an adjuster in the firewall in the engine bay, which is a pain in the ass to get to, so hopefully the problem lies behind this cover. All right, guys, it is a new day. It is Sunday, not Saturday. So let's see how productive we can be on a day that I don't feel like being productive. So obviously, we already got the GTO in the garage. Got to let her cool down for a couple minutes because I had to let it run for a few minutes before I moved her in there. And then Bonnie is back over on the side of the house, but she does have an oil change. She's fresh, full of oil, so that's good. I looked a little bit into the clutch cable situation. I figured that maybe it managed to unadjust itself. But I think it's just my mind playing games on me because it feels fine, it drives fine, and I think I've just been spoiled with the hydraulic setup in the GTO, whereas this car is cable driven and it's a little rougher to drive. So I think Bonnie's good. And then my buddy Mike came over last night. We rigged up a little bit of exhaust extensions on this car because the exhaust was very short when we built it. So we extended the exhaust out the back a little bit more and then did side dumps. Much more enjoyable to drive, and it sounds a lot cooler. So maybe we'll do some driving today with Bonnie. I wouldn't mind beating the piss out of her. It's been a while. Really wear that new oil into everything. But right now, Bonnie is good. Still needs a lot of love in different places, but she's good for now. Once again, we have multiple leaks now in this car. It's leaking power steering fluid, coolant, and I still think it's leaking oil somehow. So we'll let this baby cool down for a few minutes, and then we'll get under her and see what's going on. But my parts came for the Jeep. I ordered a valve cover gasket and I ordered some spark plug wires. So here we have my Racing Edition spark plug wires from AC Delico. And I say they're racing plug wires because they're red. So let's go throw these things on, see if it helps with how the Jeep runs at all. Let that thing run for a few minutes as well. It never hurts. And then we'll start diving into the goat. Let's knock out these plug wires on the Jeep just because. So let's start with the coil wire because this was by far the worst looking one that I saw out of the bunch. So this is it. It's corroded on both ends, and you know, it does suck because I was told that these were actually changed by my father-in-law not long ago. So you know, I'll keep these probably as a spare setup just to have them. God forbid something ever happens. I'll probably never need them, but it doesn't hurt to have. So now what I'll do is I'll take this wire over to my set of new ones, match it, and then swap it back on. All right, here's our matching one. It's a little bit longer, but I think it'll be okay. So if the routing was correct originally, when I did it, I'd go there, wraps down to the coil, pop that sucker on. That's a much tighter fit, and I like that a lot better than before. A lot of these plug wires felt pretty loose. Let's get this guy out here. Oh. Well, we have new plug wires. It's a spaghetti western in here, but at least they're all nice and tight. I went wire for wire so I wouldn't mess anything up. So who knows if all these correct lengths are in the right spots? I don't know, nor do I really care. All I care about is if it works. So let's get this baby fired up and see what happens. All right, so now that the Jeep is good, Bonnie is good, let's work on this little pig. So, as I told you guys, there's multiple leaks I have found right now. Number one, you can see some residue up here, see some on the fill plug and plug boot, and you look down there and you can see there is fresh coolant around this area. My money is going to be on that second clamp closest to the motor. Looks like that line might have pulled off a little bit. And you guys might be asking, Tyler, why is there two sets of clamps on there? Well, let me tell you guys a story. So the reason that multiple of these connections on the cooling system have two sets of clamps is after I'd gotten the car back on the road, and go figure, me being a dumbass, I reused all of the like tension clamps or whatever you want to call them, like this that style clamp right there. So I used all of these original ones from the car, thinking, oh, they worked before, they'll work again. Well, I was wrong. Not long after getting the car on the road, I'm sure I made a video on this, maybe, I don't remember. There was coolant leaking from everywhere. One day I'd fix one leak, another leak would spring somewhere else. So basically, instead of draining the whole system down like I should have and replaced all of the clamps, I simply moved all of the spring clamps and put on hose clamps to just tighten them and just to keep the car on the road. Now, depending if I can fix this leak or not just by tightening a hose or something stupid, we might have to pull the cooling system back apart on this car and replace the clamps nicely like I should have done. So we'll see. The rig repair might have bitten my ass, or I will bite its ass. So that is one of the leaks. Now, if we climb under the car, we will see the other two leaks. We're under the ye old goat. We'll see that up here is pretty dry. The front of the oil pan is beautifully dry. This side of the oil pan's dry, but you can tell by all of the paint that is gone and this all being soaking wet, we do have a leak somewhere on this side. Now, the oil plug always gets this little drippy mark on it, and I have not been able to find out if that's from something else leaking or if it's the drain plug leaking. Usually it seems like the leak, though, is coming from somewhere up top, so we're going to have to dig deeper into this one. But back here, you can tell it's just soaking wet. This is a super dark, nasty looking fluid. Can't tell what the hell that is. But further we come back, the steering rack is literally dripping fluid. So I spent the last 25 minutes or half hour or so cleaning a lot of stuff. So there was coolant from literally this point all the way back down the frame rail. So I had to clean everything from top and bottom, whatever. And I found that this hose clamp on this side was not tight. So I tightened it, and I guess we'll see if it leaks. Everything's clean enough that I should be able to see if it leaks again. So that's good. I do want to reach up behind the bumper and check if there's anything in my catch can. I haven't done that in a while. I'm not going to lie. I've been slacking with maintenance on this car. Just kind of been enjoying driving it since it's been back. And now for the not so great news. Cleaned up everything from the oil leak, and nothing came right back. So once it's under pressure, I guess I'll have to put the car back up in the air and see if it leaks. So that's that, which magically I've had this oil leak since the car has been on the road, and I have not been able to pinpoint it. At first, it was my catch can setup was set up wrong, and there was still pressure inside the crankcase or in the oil pan or whatever, and it seemed like it was seeping from the oil pan gasket. Now, the only problem with that is it was like that for a few days, and I drove it like that, and I don't know if that hurt the oil pan gasket, and now it has a pinhole that leaks. That's a possibility, and that's a big problem if that's the case. And then, for the worst of the news, back here at the steering rack, if we take a little look-see up at these two hard lines, they look a little bent, wouldn't you say? So basically, I cleaned everything up, and then with the car in the air, I put the power onto the car. I didn't turn it on, but with the power on, and unlocked the steering wheel. I spun the wheels a few times back and forth, and that top line looks like there is a little bit of fluid up there. So unfortunately, I think that line or that fitting is messed up. I don't know how that got bent. My guess is when this was out of the car, I probably was a little rough with it and somehow managed to bend that. And that line from the top there runs in front of the steering rack. It comes over, where is it? Right there on the front of the steering rack, which is nearly impossible to get to. And I don't know if I can change that with the rack in the car, which sucks because I really don't want to pull this rack out of the car. And the odds of these fittings coming out nicely is very, very low. I do have a spare line from the black car. And if you guys can tell, these lines are basically straight coming out of this fittings, whereas the ones under my car are bent, which is a problem. So we do have a nice set of lines right here that we could rob off of this rack. Will those even come off? Who the hell knows? So I have a couple options in this scenario, and we also still have another big problem that I've yet to discuss with you guys. So the big problem that I referred to, and I might have referred to it earlier, I don't know, but I don't think I've spoken about it yet in this video, is I made a big oopsie when I put this car back together. Now, when I put it back together, I just assumed when I was at the store buying the fluid for the trans, motor oil, filter, stuff like that, I assumed that I just needed power steering fluid for the car for the power steering system. Well, unbeknownst to me, the power steering cap on the reservoir straight up says to use Dextron 3 automatic transmission fluid, which I believe is the same fluid that the Magnum takes. Don't quote me on that, I forget. But yeah, so that's actually not even supposed to be leaking that clearish, yellowish looking fluid. That should be leaking red fluid. Now, I don't know if me putting the wrong fluid into the power steering system could have hurt anything. I don't know if the loud whirling noise from the front end is the power steering pump screaming for help because it's got the wrong fluid in it. I always kind of just assumed it was a pulley that got some paint on it, and I was hoping that it would clear up noise, but it never really did. So now we're at a very weird crossroad because obviously we found it's not just a random seal or a loose line leaking. It looks like a pinched line or a pinched fitting or whatever you want to call that. That looks pretty messed up. So I got to do a little bit of research and see if anybody has ever changed these lines while the rack is in the car. I'm sure if there's a will, there's a way, but it looks like a pain in the ass. And I feel like you can make a lot of mistakes trying to get a job like that done rather than just pulling the rack out of the car, which takes a couple more hours, and doing it that way. Now, again, the weird crossroad I'm at is I bought Dextron 3 ATF to put into the power steering system, hoping that there was just a seal that might have been leaking, and maybe the power steering fluid's a little thinner than the ATF, and it was just leaking by, and I was like, oh, maybe I can fix this. Well, I don't know if I can just fix this like that. So I don't even know if it's worth putting the ATF into the system. I still might try it. And the way that I plan on doing that is basically flushing all of the power steering fluid out of the system with ATF until I have clear ATF throughout all of the system. Now you might say, Tyler, that's the stupidest thing I've ever heard. Well, viewers, I don't know what to do. This is one of those weird things where it's like, it's not, oh, that's people driving by, hanging out of their window, holding plywood on their roof. That's lovely. You gotta love it. So yeah, I don't know. I think the cooling system fix is fine. The oil leak beats me. And this power steering leak, I don't know what to do about. So I'm going to sit here for 20 minutes and ponder life and try to figure this out. You gotta love when your car talks to you every time you get into it. Let's work this wheel back and forth a few times. See if that power steering line decides to piss. We'll get to see if the cooling system wants to piss as well. And same deal with the oiling system. So that's probably good. Let's check.
Bruh.
Beautiful.
Nice.
All right, folks. Well, after blowing off some steam driving good old Bonnie, which was great because I miss doing that hood rat shit in that car. Anywhoosins. Obviously, came back home after that. Or came back from Mexico to home after that. You know the deal. And this thing is still dripping from that power steering line on the rack. So I did a little reading, and basically anybody that has touched the power steering lines on these cars, all they have to talk about is how much of a royal pain in the ass any of the lines are that come off that rack, trying to get them back on or getting them off, whatever the case may be. So what I think I'm going to do, and I think it's the smarter option, so I don't torch the car to the ground by driving it with the leak, is I'm not even going to bother flushing the system and putting ATF in it yet, because I have a feeling I'm going to have to drain the system down and remove it all. But what I think I'm going to do is put the Jeep where Bonnie was, put the GTO where the Jeep is, and put Bonnie where the GTO was. Do a little musical chairs with cars, if you will. I think my best bet is to wait until my tie rod ends. I ordered a fresh set of tie rod ends for this car, and I was going to put them on, put new boots on the steering rack because they're both ripped, of course, and then I was going to bring the car to get an alignment this week. I think we're going to push that plan off until another week, and I think what we're going to shoot for is, and it'll probably be the next video, is I need to wait to get the tie rod ends and then tackle the entire steering system in one shot. Now, I don't favor the idea of having to pull the rack out of the car because it is a royal pain in the ass just by looking at how the lines are routed around the motor and stuff. So I need to do a lot of research and look at my options for if anybody has any tips and tricks on how to do it. I have a feeling this is just going to be a down and dirty suffering job, if that makes any sense. So it sucks, you know, especially with the fact of how much time was spent on this car putting everything back together, and then this kind of issue pops up. But it's not the end of the world. The car didn't burn to the ground like it possibly could have. I don't even know if power steering fluid is flammable, but I know ATF is. And if there was ATF in that system, I think honestly this car probably would have burned down recently, last week, 2 weeks ago, whenever this leak started. Because I had to brake clean the entire transmission, cross member, and most of the exhaust up front. So it's been leaking pretty bad, but it is what it is. This is the kind of problem you have when you drive cars that are 20 years old. So, like I said, we're going to move all the cars around, and I'll get a game plan together while I get some parts for this thing, and then just tackle all the steering components at once, and then hopefully, after this debacle, the steering system will be good. Yeah. Not fun. Not the news I wanted. I was hoping to get everything repaired today, maybe drive Bonnie for a few days anyways, just for fun. But it looks like we'll be driving Bonnie regardless if it's fun or not, just because. So let's get these cars moved around so I can go relax because it's Sunday and I don't want to go to work tomorrow. All right, guys, well, that's where we're going to end today's video. Once again, it doesn't really feel like we got much done. Kind of did, kind of not really. I don't know. But you guys know the deal. Make sure you're subscribed if you guys enjoy the content. Make sure you drop a like and drop some comments down below. Some parts just came in for the GTO, so when I get back home, I will check those boxes out. But I am off to Home Depot to go see what kind of last-minute Black Friday deals they have laying around. And I also need to buy gas for my leaf blower because for anybody that has seasons wherever you live, it's time to do leaves, my favorite. But anyways, thank you guys as always for watching. I'll catch you in the next one.